Hello, I'm civil rights attorney Carol Powell Lexington, and welcome to the Carol Powell Lexington Show, a show that connects you to pertinent issues that affect your community as well as the country. And here today, we are going to be discussing as usual, very interesting topics. You know, I always, before we get into the topics, I like to give an affirmation. And our affirmation for the day is that we walk by faith and not by sight. And no matter how bad it looks, know that God is going to work it out for your good. Now, today we are going to be discussing the strike that's going on in Hollywood. You know, I always start off saying we have to fight. We have to fight for everything. And we don't know why the powers that be just don't want to act right. Everyone has to fight to make people do the right thing, or make the powers that be do the right thing. And guess what? Hollywood is not exempt from that fight, because now we have the actors and the writers fighting for the survival of their profession. And here we're going to be discussing what's going on with that strike and what can we do? What type of solutions can we offer to maybe help the powers that be and the writers and the actors come to some type of resolution. And here to facilitate and help facilitate that discussion is Miss Courtney Stewart. And welcome, Courtney.
Thank you.
You are not a stranger for being here. In fact, you were here at the beginning when I got started, and thank you. It's going to be, I think, a year next month.
Oh my gosh, has it been a year? Wow.
Almost. And you are an entrepreneur and a filmmaker. Yes. You have co-produced some films that made their way to the big screens. You are a co-founder of a production company that has produced multiple festival award-winning films, including Day of Reckoning, Oh Baby, Glitch, and many others.
Yes.
And you also are a member of SAG.
Yes.
Tell us what's going on in this Hollywood hell of a strike.
Oh, Lord, it's a long stretch of drama in Hollywood right now. But I think, it reflects, as you mentioned, like what's going on just in the economy of America in general, and workers deciding that they deserve more than they're getting, and going after it the way that they know how and the way that they can when they're met with roadblocks. And that's no different for Hollywood right now. As you mentioned, I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA, which is the actors union. And right now, as of July, the actors went on strike, and the writers of the WGA, which is the Writers Guild of America, they've been on strike since May. So we are in a long stretch of no work and quiet in the industry right now, with both of those being on strike.
Well, I'm upset because that's not only affecting other people other than the writers and the producers. It's affecting like the caterers, the drivers, other people that play a big role in helping the writers and the producers. And it's affecting me. Here. I can't watch the Tamron Hall show. I mean, I'm just highly upset about what's going on, that these powers that be won't do the right thing. But my position is, if you have to fight, then fight on. We're going to be right there fighting with you to help you to get what you deserve. 100%. You deserve a sustainable health care plan, a sustainable retirement fund, and you definitely deserve to protect your image and likeness from the use of AIs.
Yes, and that's exactly some of the points of which both unions are fighting for right now. I mean, obviously the standard for everyone is we need higher wages because inflation and things like that are going on. Like, we need to meet up with what the cost of living is happening. And there's been some movement in that area in the negotiations, not nearly what it needs to be from either angle. Neither SAG nor WGA were totally pleased with the counteroffer that was given for those wage increases. But also, just in general, they're seeking out protections for the industry. Like, if you're an actor, and like you mentioned with AI, like they want to get to a place, the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers would like to get to a place where they can use AI however they choose. They want. They don't
No,
want.
that's ridiculous.
'Cause, I mean, the basis for both WGA and SAG are just asking for regulations to start to be put in place to try to get ahead of the technology.
And you need those regulations in place because no one should be able to just see themselves arbitrarily on TV without having given their consent.
Very
and
true.
without having to be adequately compensated. You can't use my likeness and image
Absolutely.
in perpetuity without my consent the way you want to do it. And we see that that's what's about to happen with this AI situation going on here.
Sure.
And the public, the people wholeheartedly support the strike.
Yes, and I was seeing some statistics from the Gallup poll. They're saying that about 72% of the American public agrees with the writers and are happy that they're on strike, and about, I think it's like 68%. I think it was a Hollywood Reporter did a poll about the actors being on
Right.
strike, and the 68% of Americans are in agreement with that, which is kind of great because one of the arguments always tends to be, oh, you're actors and you're writers and you're in
Yeah.
Hollywood,
People
you're
think
making
you
all
make
this
a lot of
money.
money.
Let me make
Right.
it real clear, you guys.
Right.
Most of us out here do not make amazing amounts of money. We are all just kind of,
Right. We're
doing
working
what
like we
can,
do.
and we work
Right.
like everybody else, day to day,
Right.
check to check, trying to figure out, the best way we can.
the best
get
way to
through.
live.
Yeah, exactly.
And not only that, people are not taking into consideration, like I mentioned earlier, you have other people that's involved in this entertainment industry that help the industry move forward, like the people, like the caterers, the drivers, the costume designers, the what do you call them? Dry cleaners. There are a lot of little pieces to the puzzle before it even gets to the actors
For sure.
and the producers. Because you have, I don't ever want to call anybody little people, but you have the people that you don't never see that are working behind the scenes
100%.
that are making everything possible. And these people are being highly affected by what's going on when these
affected.
powers that be won't do the right thing.
Factual.
So just like anything else that I do, you fight and you fight. You be relentless in the fight. You never give up because you're going to win in the end because it's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. It's the right thing to compensate people and treat people fairly in the work industry.
Very
and
true.
When we see that, like for instance, like you said, a lot of people are looking at the fact, well, those are actors. I don't have any pity for them because I saw one actor say that he had to sell his house.
Yes.
And then the comments from that was like, yeah, right, that's one of many of your houses. But everyone don't have many houses. You have to take into consideration the behind the scenes people that deserve to be compensated too.
Exactly.
And so this thing is real big that's going on. The strike is you might say something that's more than what we see, more than that meets the eye of the average person.
For sure. It's very layered, and I think
Right. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, it's layered, and it's a conversation from a like if you zoom out perspective, it's
Right.
the idea of what changes in technology's landscape and how it's changing, in this instance, the Hollywood industry. But these changes affect all different industries. Every industry will be touched by AI in some sort of way,
Right.
and technology in general. So it does matter what we do in these moments and instances. And if we are taking, forward movement and choosing to try to get ahead of the curve before it completely decimates people's ability to make money and their ability to create the art that we are entertained by all the time, every day. Like you said, you want to see your shows. I want to see my shows.
Yeah, I want to see my shows.
I want to be able to audition for my shows. And right now
Right.
we can't do any of that because, the streaming world has taken over. Since the last strike was the writer's strike in 2007 into 2008. And at that point, we didn't even have like Netflix and Amazon Prime and
Right.
Apple and all of those creating content. Like that wasn't even something that was a major factor at
Right.
that point. And now here we are 16 years later, and those streamers are really the linchpins in all of this.
Right,
They are
because they're
really
making all
ones
the
determining.
money.
And they're telling us that they're not
But
making any money.
can that be
Where's the money?
But can't you determine that from viewership?
Well, that's
Can you look
part
at the
of,
data from the viewership and say, wait a minute now?
well, that's part of the problem.
These shows are making it, so we know you're making some money out there.
But
Because you're
that's-
going to have some shows that are doing well, and you're going to have
Yes,
some that don't do well.
absolutely.
But either way it's going, they're making money.
Yes. One of the fights for both guilds is the transparency from those streamers about their viewership numbers and all of that, because they're not required in the same way as like the networks were to disclose that information. Those are private companies. So,
Right. But you know what? I had a thought about all of this. I think that SAG and what's your other union?
the Writers Guild, WGA.
The Writers Guild, they need to get with their legislators and put it in law. Make a law, not a policy. Take this negotiation, take it to the law, take it to the legislators. Get some law into place that you can't use my likeness, my image, that you're going to have to provide me with some fees or adequate funds with these streaming services, that the streaming services are going to have to provide the actors, the writers, the producers, you know,
Do a better job.
they're going to have to do a better job, and they're going to have to adequately compensate you for using your
Yeah.
contents.
But right now, those streamers, for the most part, don't have any real incentive to kind of come to a better agreement for the creatives, because they don't make their primary source of income is not from creating content. Apple is not making the majority of its money from their streaming
Right.
service. So,
But that's just a thought that you want to put in place, because we're going in that direction.
yeah.
We are on the cusp of a technological era where, let's face it, AI is going to be very involved in the process of everything we do in life, and mainly in Hollywood. So
Yeah.
they need to put it in law. Regardless of how the negotiations go, get with someone, get with your state representatives, and just put this thing, and your senators, and put this thing into law.
Do you think that that's in, because there's a lot of conversation around, is it labor law? Is it copyright law? Like how are...
Right
how does
now,
that
it's
move
like a
happen?
labor type of law, because you want to be compensated for your work. So it's more of to me, a labor law type of situation where you wanna put it in writing, and it can go in the books of the labor law, and they can adopt it in whatever other area of law that they need to adopt it in. But my position is to put, especially since we are coming into this AI type of era, to put whatever you need to put it into law. Yeah, you can negotiate, but to make sure that you put in law that I can't wake up, or an actor or can't wake up 10 years from now and see themselves on TV, and it's done without their consent and without them receiving any
Without
money
their-
from it.
any money whatsoever.
Right.
But
And it just seems to be that it seems to be that some type of metrics or formula can be used to arrive at this.
you know, it's
Even-
funny you say that, because it seems like simple math, right? Like we
Right.
should be able to be, come together and be like, okay, here are what the numbers look like. The landscape has changed. Old school
Right.
residual concepts don't work anymore because streamers
Precisely.
don't operate the same way. Let's come to this. But we are in a capitalist society.
Right.
These are private companies that have decided to enter the content space. And I think it's a interesting conversation around how you can regulate the content space from the way that we've done it so far, but it being in technically a different industry at this point. Because this isn't just Hollywood as we've known Hollywood.
Right. See, times have changed for everything. And you have to roll with the punches. You have to roll
Yeah.
with the times. You have to change too. And so those streaming services, they have changed. They have entered into a zone where they're making a lot of money.
Yeah.
They're in that zone.
Yes.
And it's going to continue to be that way because that's the way that we're going with technology. So right now it's the time. I would say striking is the right time. I heard someone says that, oh no, this is a bad time. We just came off a pandemic. But guess what? You're in another pandemic if you can't pay your rent.
Also true.
Right. If you can't pay your rent and just meet the day-to-day expenses that you have, then, you have to fight, and you have to fight for it, then fight for it.
I feel like the public brought us all out together,
right,
to make us realize, like, we have value in what we do, and our lives are valuable, and our families are valuable on another level, and we can't continue to be taken advantage of, because
that's true.
This labor battle has been across the country. I mean, UPS was on strike, and they did really well.
Yeah, UPS fought, and they seemed like they came out on top.
They came out all right. They came out all right. The pilots were striking, so this isn't just unique to Hollywood at this point. Like, there's industry being affected everywhere. And
so everybody's fighting everywhere.
Yes.
You have to fight for what you want. You just got to fight for it, and don't give up until you get something.
All right.
You get something in your favor.
Yes.
And I use the word adequate compensation that the power, and I'm saying the powers that be, like Sony or whatever,
all of them.
Netflix, all of them. The powers that be need to come to some type of resolution where they know what the viewership are as it relates to the streaming services. They already know this.
Oh, you know they do. Of course
they've already done probably some type of market study or survey 10 years out that this is how much money we gonna make.
Yep, they've got all those projections.
But now it's time to share that money and give the people that's earning that money and the people that's making your streaming services work. It's time to compensate those people. And that's where we are. And I'm in the fight with you guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I tell you.
In this fight with us, in addition to, obviously, there are many different things that they're asking for. Just to give you guys a little more perspective on some of the other things that are being requested. Obviously, the AI and enhanced wages and enhanced contributions to like pension and health care are all super important. Those are like baseline things that everybody's going for. But there are other things in the industry that, are needed. For instance, in terms of expanding and continuing to, cultivate an industry that works and that has creatives that know how to work. Specifically, the writers are working really hard to get some, regulation around how they're doing writers' rooms and not allowing these streamers, as they have been so far, doing these mini rooms where they're not actually hiring the right amount of writers all the time, and they're kind of basically they're skimping on who they hire, how many they hire, how long they hire them for, in any and every way that they can. And that's also causing a problem for the future, because sort of the pipeline to becoming what is considered called a showrunner is like getting in one of these writers' rooms, getting up under another showrunner writer who has done the job and has run multiple shows, and you learn through that pipeline how to actually head and take care of a show. And we're not getting that. So all of this young talent that's coming up is not getting positions in these rooms, and then they are not, being trained up in the industry of how to run a show. So yes, we're changing how shows can be run and things like that with technology and whatnot, but still the baseline concept of how the industry is working with a show using a writer leading that way is just not happening the way that it used to. So they're fighting to, build some regulation around that and forcing those companies to pay these people so they can live also. And with actors, silly things like, if you're a stunt actor, you need rest. You should have like a certain amount of rest required, and for safety purposes.
Precisely.
These aren't crazy things that people are asking for. Hair and makeup artists.
These are simple things that we thought were already in place.
In some ways they are, but they need to be expanded in some places.
They need to be expanded, and they need to be improved because times have changed.
Absolutely. Times have changed. And you know what? And the amount of content that's trying to be pushed out has also changed. So like the turnaround has gotten quicker. People want to get things faster and quicker and all of that. So that affects production schedules and all kinds of things. And, we're women of color here. We have textured hair. They're actually trying to get, for the SAG-AFTRA, get some regulation around requiring people to know how to do ethnic hair and makeup.
Wow.
Because God forbid, we show up to set. I've shown up to set multiple times with my own makeup. and my own hair products and things that I've had to do
Right.
myself. And when I'm being hired to be an actor, and I should have the same access as my
But you know,
Caucasian
those are just some
counterparts.
things that you shouldn't even. That should have been taken care of a long time
Years
ago.
It's 2023.
Right.
It's 2023, guys.
And you know, black folks and brown folks
Yeah.
are not new folks to
We're
the
not
industry.
new. We've been here
and
since it
and that should have
started.
been taken care of as far as getting adequate people that know how to do brown folks and black folks hair and put their
Yes.
makeup on.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that should not even be an issue.
It shouldn't.
It should not be
And
an
yet,
issue.
here we are.
But yet, here we
Here we
are.
are.
Here we
And
are.
just one more point, just because obviously I'm an actor, and I just want people to understand that, yes, we get to do things that we love when we're on set, and it's amazing. It's a dream come true every time you get to do it, even when you're doing it for pennies. But the reality is that there is work for months, years upon years sometimes before you actually make it to a set and get to just do your
Right.
few minutes on set. And some of
Right.
that includes auditioning, which since COVID has fully blown into self-taping auditions. So basically you tape yourself at home and you send in your video to casting.
Wow.
And on the one hand, some people love it because, you know, you're at home, you get to do it as many
Right.
times as you want to feel good about it. Sometimes not so great because the requirements just continue to get bigger. So like they basically want you doing studio level production on your audition tape, like with lighting and using certain cameras and
Wow.
angles. And some casting were sending like 15 pages worth of scripts to like have memorized to do on camera with a 24-hour max turnaround situation. So things like, and you know, most of the people that are still auditioning, we got other jobs. Because
Wow.
auditioning, you don't get paid to audition.
That's right, 'cause you're trying to get there.
You're trying to get there, so you got to be able to work. So the idea that you can get like a short film worth of a script and that you have to turn it around on a professional tape and edit it and all of this and get it sent in a short amount of time is not necessarily feasible. So they're just trying to get some additional regulations around those requirements. Like everybody doesn't have a home where they can shoot themselves full body. Like
Right.
if you live in a studio apartment,
Right.
you know,
right.
you can't move your
do
camera
that.
far enough back. So like small things like that don't seem like a big deal, but if you're doing auditions on a regular basis, that can become really challenging. And it's
Right.
in the end, it's a lot of work. It's a
Right.
lot of work. If you've ever done, you know, videos for Instagram, how many times do you shoot yourself a video or take pictures of yourself and then,
Many
that
pictures.
one's not right, let me do it
Right.
again and all of that before you ever post it. So it's kind
Right.
of the same concept as that, except this could mean the difference between you paying your rent for the rest of the year and not working for the rest of the
Right.
year. So
Right.
there's, you know, a few things that are still important.
What about which I read the relocation fees when actors go off to England. I didn't realize they have to pay
Yeah.
for them. They have to pay it coming out of their own pocket for their work that they're doing when they have to relocate to shoot
And
someplace.
For sure. And a lot of shows, you know, especially now, are being shot in Toronto and Atlanta
Italy.
and across overseas and stuff. And so again, there's some money in place to help with that, but they are actually trying to make it be something that's a little bit more specific to location. So like if I'm having to
Right.
relocate to New York City, but I'm living in Kansas to do a show, the cost of living in New York City is
much
different.
higher. Yeah.
It's
Much
different.
higher,
And
yeah.
so that compensation should
It-
reflect the difference in the cost of living and things like that. So
Right.
paying rent and, you know, living in different, I mean, it's things that you think are just simple and make sense. But
Right,
they're
right.
cost-cutting measures that producers have used for years to, you know, bring down the bottom line. And in the end, we want producers to succeed too. We want them to do well. We want them to make projects and make money and all the things, but it can't always be at the expense of the workers.
Right. So who do you think is winning? Are they at a stalemate? Well,
It's not looking good. I mean, there actually was a report out today from Warner Brothers Discovery that the CEO, I think his name's Dan Zaslav. They had to put in their like quarter projections or whatever going into the end of the year, and they're projected to lose another $300 to $500 million, I believe, headed into the end of the year. And they don't see in this particular filing, they don't see an end in sight.
Wow.
So, and in the previous quarter's filing, they thought by September they would be back up and going.
Do you think that the powers that be, they're not really concerned about the strike? Because either way it goes, that they are still making money?
It's hard to think about that, right? Because on some level, yes, they're still making money. Streamers have clearly backed up content. I'm guessing, I don't even know, probably until like summer of next year at least, that they can still keep releasing. The big movie studios producers probably are in a little bit more of a precarious space because we're headed into what we call award season, where the awards movies start to come out at the end of the year, that then, the Oscars and all of that at the top of next year would come around. So those are big money, like bringing in for actors, elevating actors to the next level. The prestige and all of that means money for studios. So it's kind of looking like the normal studio system is probably going to be hit much harder and not necessarily winning, but streamers probably doing okay for quite a bit longer. Right. So I think there was also an article out in Deadline about maybe the studios should separate themselves from the streamers and make a deal with SAG and with WGA because their interests don't align. The streamers just don't have as much incentive to come to a deal as the others.
Wow.
We don't know.
But
it's real quiet right now, though.
Right now you have, I guess, a situation where you have the union members competing with the non-union members in the industry.
It's kind of been a thing for a while, but not so much in film and television because most of the mainstream film and TV is done under union contracts.
Okay.
But the commercial industry has seen in the last, 15 years, major cuts in terms of union talent usage. So whereas it used to be, 80% of commercials were SAG-AFTRA commercials, now, I think when you get auditions, they say usually it's about 40% are for union actors and the other 60 is for non-union. So all these commercials, it used to be you could book a commercial and that might pay for your life for the year. That was like a salary for a year if you were union. Now they're able to do non-union commercials that might run multiple times, pay a flat fee to the actor, $1,500. Maybe a $3,000 buyout. They can run that commercial as much as they want forever, and you made $4,500.
Wow.
So that I don't think has infiltrated theatrical, which is film and television, quite as much. But who knows what'll happen? It's possible if we keep striking.
Right. Let me ask you, what are the residuals that some of the actors are making now aren't they getting something from streaming services?
Streamers right now have, I believe it was a flat amount that they would give for a first round of residuals, but it wasn't indicative of anything to do with the success of the show. So it was, in the end, it ended up being pennies for them. And it's not in any way, because in the past, residuals, if you booked a network show and, your residuals could help pay your life until you got another job.
Right.
Because as an actor, you are perpetually unemployed. So that was kind of the goal, is always to get a network show because you'd get residuals and that would help pay when you weren't able to work or couldn't book a job.
I call it my bread and butter money.
Exactly.
Like when I don't get a big case, but I still, by the grace of God, have cases coming in.
Exactly.
And they can pay the bills. They can pay my rent. Pay for my secretary. I call it bread and butter.
Exactly. Keeping regular life afloat.
Keep it flowing.
Exactly. Yeah. And with streamers, that's never been the case. Like the amounts just weren't the amounts that we had during network days, still network days do well, but yeah. So, but that's one of the asks, is to do a better job. Either let it be a revenue share of the success of the show, of the success of the streamers. There's different ways to calculate it, but they are asking both WGA and SAG to do a better job of calculating what that residual should look like from a streamer.
Right, right. It seems to me that you shouldn't take a flat fee. And you know why? Because technology is still emerging.
Yeah.
And as technology emerge in this era that we're about to embark upon, you don't want to lock yourself into say, okay, I'll take a flat fee for $1,000, and then you look up and now your image and your likeness is generating millions, and you can't get anything but the 1,000. So it just seems that you shouldn't lock yourself in. You should have like a recurring residual to come in until be a part of your retirement, until you retire.
And if you are already a star, that can be worked into your deal.
Right.
It's different for a star, obviously.
Right, from different people. From
but
main
again,
people.
like the stars are what, 1% of the on-camera talent that exists?
Yeah.
And everybody else, the rest of us are just regular folks, again, trying to, survive.
Trying to make a living.
To make a living. So it would definitely behoove us all to have some sort of arrangement that isn't just some flat fee that they made up that had nothing to do with the actual numbers of what's going on.
Well, that's what they're gonna do.
I mean, yeah, that's what they want to
That's the
continue.
problem. That's why you are in a stalemate.
Yes.
That's why no needles are being moved, because they are doing just what you just said. They don't want to move the needle.
How do you combat greed? Because in the end, that's what it is.
That's precisely
it's
what
greed.
it is.
They don't want to share. They don't want to share. The
And
one lesson we all
unfortunately-
learned as kids,
But-
sharing is caring.
Yeah, but you have something that they want. So at some point, they're gonna have to share.
Yes.
Because they wouldn't have a company if it wasn't for the writers and actors.
It's true.
And the other people that make the whole system work.
For sure.
So at some point, you guys are going to be victorious. You really are.
We're gonna give a hands clap for that. Yes, one day we'll be victorious.
You're going to be victorious.
Yes, and in the meantime,
And you're not just going to get pennies on a dollar. You're going to be victorious and be adequately compensated.
I believe
You have to define what the word adequately compensated is, because their definition is going to be different from yours.
Gonna be different because
Right.
This one CEO of, I believe it was it Netflix, that makes more than the entire ask for SAG-AFTRA, like over across. It was just insane. But in order for us to get to that place of victory, we need to be continually supported to stay on strike. So I think that's the biggest thing, because a lot of people are like, well, what can we do? How can we help? Like, should we get rid of our subscriptions and that kind of thing? I've heard a few different arguments about the subscription thing, and it seems to come down to, don't do that, because in the end, that's what the streamers want to show, that this is an unstable industry. We are not really making much money from that. And if suddenly revenue completely drops, see, we have proof. It's,
I'm glad you said that. Yeah.
So that's probably not the best thing. I mean, this is, again, my opinion, but I think it holds pretty strong. The best way to help, if you are not a part of the industry, is to donate to things like SAG-AFTRA Foundation and places where they are supporting the artists that are on strike to continue to live, so that they don't get to a place of being destitute and needing to force their leaders to come to a deal before they can get what they really deserve.
Right. How many people have donated to SAG? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know how many people have donated, but I know people have been strong. Like even some of the superstars that make the millions of dollars.
Yeah,
have stepped
I
forward.
read about Mr. Rock.
Yeah, The
Dwayne
Rock
Johnson
did a huge donation.
Yeah.
Meryl Streep, I believe, did a really large donation. So those big donations are great, but like, if you know somebody or don't know somebody, reach out to somebody and be like, I want to help, support your family. I know it's hard for everybody right now because the economy is tough and inflation. Girl, eggs is $12. Like it's rough out here for everybody.
Every little cent helps.
But
yeah, you get $1 here from there, and everywhere. We all can support and help each other.
Sure. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that all of us can do is help in the smallest ways that we can, and whatever we have available, to keep those people, all of these people, afloat. And it's not just actors and writers, like you mentioned earlier, caterers, hair and makeup artists, wardrobe people, entire crews, like cameramen,
Right.
grips and lighting, all of those people are not working because these sets are down. So
if we donate to SAG, those people will receive some of the donations.
SAG is specific to actors,
Okay.
but WGA site, you can go on, you can go to IATSE, which is IATSE, is one of the crew unions that you can probably navigate online and figure out any place that donations, everybody has their own sort of funds. All the unions have their funds to help their people. And also encourage our California government to give strikers unemployment.
Oh, that's what I was about to say. There is a bill called SB 799 that will give striking workers in California unemployment
Yes.
insurance. And from my understanding, it has gone through the committee and it will be before the legislators on September the 14th. And by the grace of God, they will pass it, and then it will go to Governor Newsom's desk. And by the grace of God, he's going to sign off. And because that's great. That's a little light at the end of the tunnel
light
that
in
you
the
can
tunnel.
see. You can see a little glimmer of hope somewhere in there. And
Want your shows back?
yeah.
Support your artists.
That's right. You want your shows back? We all need to support our artists because Lord knows I need my shows.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just like I said, I gotta see Tamron Hall. But well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
This was a very needed conversation, and it brought an understanding, I'm sure, to a lot of people because it helped me out a lot to understanding precisely what's going on, and not to be narrow-minded and say, well, these rich folks, they're actors, they got money, they don't need. It shows, this show hopefully opened the door to show how other people, like you said, the dressmakers, the dry cleaners, the caterers, all the other people that make up and that help the actors and the writers, hopefully this show shows how they need to be supported and compensated during this time that Tinseltown is on the strike. Well, thank you, Courtney, so much for joining in this discussion. It's a very needed discussion. It's shedding some light on what's going on in Tinseltown. I know I was enlightened, and hopefully our audience will be enlightened from this show also. Please join me at X, Carol P. Lexing, formerly Twitter, and at Carol Powell Lexing, Instagram.
Hi guys, you can follow me at Silver Guardian Productions and at Stuart Starlet on Instagram and on X. And make sure you check out sagaftra.org and WGA.org for donation opportunities to help and support your creatives.
See you next time on the Carol Powell Lexing Show.